Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Unwired. I am your host, Outspoken Samantha, and I appreciate you being here. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and while you're at it, make sure that you give the video a thumbs up as well, because those are always great ways to help support my channel, and it doesn't cost you anything. Today, we have a lot to go over. We're going to discuss the events of last night, how the evening kind of played out. We'll go through some of the best clips of the Democrat media reaction and discuss what this win kind of shows us about our values and also what it might mean for the future in several different areas. So I would love your input. I would love your comments. Yeah, let's get started. All right, guys. I know once again, I'm running a little bit late this morning. I don't know about you guys, but I am so incredibly tired. I am not a late night person at all. I have a hard time staying awake past about 10:30. So I was really fighting hard to stay awake, to just make sure that I could see what was going on as best as I could. It was just really, really exhausting, but I'm glad that I stayed awake. I'm glad that I did the best that I could. I'm not gonna lie. There was a little bit of time there where I was tweeting about how tired I was, and maybe I was just being whiny, but ultimately I just wasn't even sure that we were going to get the results last night. So I wasn't sure if staying awake was even worth it. But I'm glad that things turned out the way that they did. And I know that we have a lot to get into. So some of the things that I do want to talk about today is I want to go through some of the different aspects of perhaps what we were feeling throughout the day leading up to the results, what it kind of felt like as the results started rolling in. And I think a lot of us maybe felt a little bit of shock as things started to really go our way. And perhaps we were kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for something to happen. Let's talk about some of the media reaction, because that's always fun to look at. And of course, their reaction after the results were finalized. We'll also, I do want to touch on what I think this means about our values as a country, because I think we're all relieved to find out that we are not a nation that focuses on the killing of unborn babies. And that is not who we are across the country. That is not who we are at our core. And I think had Kamala Harris been elected, I think that more than anything probably would have been an extremely disturbing reality to try to come to terms with feeling like something like abortion could really sway an election in what is supposed to be the most free, moral country on earth, where our foundation was based on Judeo-Christian values, where it really is about all men are created equal and we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To have a country that is based on some of the most uplifting and Christian driven ideas, to have fallen so far that something like abortion could make us vote for somebody that would lead based on that issue. So I think that was ultimately something that was very, very difficult to grasp. If you are in the chat, I would love, let me know where you are watching from today. Let me know what you are drinking to keep yourself awake this morning. Again, I don't mean drinking in the sense of actual drinking, but as we know, I have my favorite drink with me this morning. I am going to need it. Still trying to wake up a little bit this morning. So let's get into this a little bit. I would love to hear your thoughts as we're going. Of course, I will highlight comments as we go. Brian, what does that say? Blaha, good morning from Ohio. Great day for America. Let's see. Akum Byron, greetings from Southwest Cameroon. I love hearing that. I love being able to talk to people from so many different areas. It's amazing to me how small the world seems sometimes thanks to the internet. So I appreciate the support from so many different areas. I love it. Let's see. Jeremiah says, your backdrop and lighting is on point, Samantha. I'm watching from Grand Rapids, Michigan, drinking Pac-Man G Fuel to keep my eyes open. I love it. I actually did want to address my background really, really quick. So it is not finished. I picked these tiles because I wanted kind of more, I just wanted texture in the background. And I wanted to have that teal and gray theme overall, though I do want to put some color in here. But the tiles are actually set on a board, so I can just take it down. Or if I want to turn it around and have a different color in the background, even though I don't think I'll do that. But I do need to bring the tiles down, as you can see, so that we don't have that in the background. I also want to push my camera backwards so I get a wider view. I'm going to put more of this wallpaper over here and get a bookshelf. So it's not finished. It is very much a work in progress. I'm going to spruce it up, but I just don't have the ability to do those things just yet. The financial ability is just one of those things that I have to do it in pieces. So you guys are going to be a part of the transformation of my recording area, because obviously I've got to cover up these blinds as well. So, but I appreciate my husband, especially, who has put a lot of work into this. This is kind of his area of expertise, just kind of creating wall coverings and whatnot. That's the industry as an entrepreneur that he worked in for many, many years. So he loves doing things like this, and I always appreciate his help on that. Let's see. One cookie says, we have been unburdened by what has been. Before it was a joke, and now it's for real. Absolutely. I don't think that Kamala ever anticipated that we would use her favorite talking point to actually use it as a cheer for our side of the aisle. I don't think that she ever could have imagined that we would actually appreciate her introducing that phrase for us. So that actually just cracks me up. So let's talk about kind of the tone leading up to the election. My husband and I went to vote first thing in the morning yesterday. We live in Texas, so we weren't really expecting anything crazy to be happening. Of course, I was just trying to keep an eye on different areas of the country to see if anything would happen, but I didn't really see anything crazy unfold. So if you guys did, drop it in the comments, because I didn't see anything insane unfold. But I think I can speak for all of us, and you guys can let me know if you agree or disagree. But I think we were cautiously optimistic about how the election might go, because we've seen how disastrous the Biden-Harris administration has been for the country, and how many people are suffering at an unimaginable level because of this economy, the job market, the costs of goods, housing, energy, and seeing what it means to actually live with the reality of a very insecure immigration system, and hopefully develop an appreciation for strong borders and a strong immigration process and a vetting process, and realizing that vetting people is actually not a racist thing, but it actually benefits both citizens and non-citizens who want to come to America, and there's so many other issues that we could touch on. But ultimately, people realized that there are worse things than mean tweets. So, I think that we were optimistic because in my opinion, it shouldn't have even been a close race, with having to live with the things that we've had to live with over the last several years. But ultimately, while a lot of us could see how corrupt the media and the Democrats were during Trump's last term, and didn't think for a minute that people could watch cities burn down and want to elect anyone that would actually allow that to happen. But unfortunately, what it took for more people to wake up is to live with the reality of what Democrat policies actually do for our country, and to have to witness firsthand that they do not care about anybody that is not a millionaire, and that no one can survive in a Democrat economy unless you're making at least a high six-figure income, and that you can't say that you care about everyday Americans when you're the one in charge and the results of your leadership are for things to consistently spiral downward. And then ultimately try to shirk all responsibility and the role that you've played in that by blaming someone who isn't even in office as things are going downhill. So, unfortunately, it did take living under these circumstances under the things that we knew were going to happen, despite the fact that in 2020, all of these Democrats were promising to heal the country and unify the country and make things better for people and help us to recover from COVID. Ultimately, the fact that they were promising those things and to have such a stark turnaround, we knew that that wasn't what they were going to give us if they ended up in the White House. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, it took living that reality, actually having to experience it firsthand before realizing, hey, these people aren't exactly honest. These people aren't exactly telling me the truth about what it is that they want for the country. So it seems like, despite the fact that we were looking at this and being like, okay, more people are waking up, I was seeing countless TikTok videos of people saying, you know what, I voted Democrat before, I'm voting for Trump now. I saw a lot of people saying, I've never voted before, I'm voting for Trump this time. A lot of people that were never Trumpers coming around and saying, turns out having the possibility of Kamala Harris in the White House can turn someone from a never Trumper into somebody who will actually vote for Donald Trump, even if they have to hold their breath while doing it. Despite all of that, I think a lot of us probably went through the day holding our breath, because we've just seen how effective the media has been in getting people to ignore reality and vote based on a narrative instead of what is actually happening right in front of their faces, and who the Democrats consistently show us who they are with their actions, despite what they say with their words. So we just didn't know what to expect. It's like we wanted to hope for the best. We wanted to hope that people were really opening their eyes, but at the same time, we didn't put anything past the left. We saw a lot of the shady business that happened in the last election. So, and I don't know about you guys, I'm going to say it, I just assumed that the left would pull out even more of their antics this time around, because I honestly didn't think they were going to let this man win. I thought that they were going to do everything in their power to keep that from happening. So, it was just, as much as we knew the way that things should go, there was so much, especially with the, this battle between good and evil. We know that there are no boundaries when it comes to a side that has clearly embraced so many dark ideas, and therefore we just didn't know what to expect. Matt Torrance, thank you for joining the conversation. He says, Samantha, we did it. I love seeing your guys's tweets this morning. I think I can speak for all of us as well when I say, like, a huge weight has been lifted off of our shoulders. And that's not to say, obviously, that the path going forward is going to be smooth, because there's a lot to do, which we will get into. But I'm just going to go back here as I was talking about the background here. Jeremiah says, varied textures, nice corners behind you, fill out the gray and teal with some of the orange accents. Motivational lighting would be hard. Same with backlighting. The hubby will rock it. Yeah. So as I said, you guys are going to be a part of the transformation of my recording space. But so about last night. So I don't know about you guys, but I was really, really scared to actually go to sleep. And let's see, I put this out there. I think this is the tweet where I just said, sorry, let me make this a little smaller. I just said, I feel like if I go to sleep right now and Trump loses, it's going to be all my fault. So, and a lot of people responded to me and they're like, yes, I feel like if I close my eyes now, it's all going to go downhill. We can't let it happen again. I think we all just suffered from a little bit of PTSD from what happened last time. So a lot of people agreed, which is probably, again, why we're all just completely exhausted this morning. So yeah, get that double cappuccino going this morning, that quad shot, whatever you need. And you guys can let me know as well. Did you think we were actually going to get the results last night? Because I just honestly thought that we would be going at this for weeks, especially when it came to the swing states. I just honestly thought that we weren't going to hear anything for at least probably until like mid to the end of November. So I think all of that to say, I think we were all in shock on both sides of the aisle that the results actually came in, and that, at least from what we could see, that the shenanigans were kept to a minimum. Though I have no doubt that we are going to see some poop flinging happening between now and January 20th. But ultimately, Trump came through, and it was a landslide. It wasn't even close. So I do want to get into a few of these clips because I think the media are still in shock that running on a singular campaign issue and then trying to divide households by telling women to vote against their husbands, and then, running this ad campaign about reshaping masculinity, all of these things that just ultimately did not matter to people. Nobody is more shocked than, organizations like CNN that those things just really didn't resonate with people. And wouldn't you know, actually being able to afford groceries is a little bit more important. So let's look at a little bit of reaction from CNN as I think this was before, or maybe this was from this morning, just kind of discussing how things played out and just kind of what can be learned if CNN is capable of learning anything. So let's look at this. Again, I love your guys' comments. Super chats are always appreciated.
Would continually talk about.
Otherwise, just being here and having this conversation with me is the most important thing. So this is CNN. They're trying to have a conversation about perhaps what they could have done better, like all of it. So let's have a listen.
Groups of voters that honestly voted for Joe Biden in bigger numbers than they were willing to vote for Kamala Harris this time. What do you see?
Well, look, I think it was indeed a clear mandate. I think you have a lot of people in this country who do feel left behind despite ethnic differences. I think the idea that reproductive rights alone was going to propel the vice president, it certainly helped. Clearly, you saw women who voted for that issue in terms of state mandates, but also voted for Donald Trump.
Arizona,
for example, correct. Yeah. And so I just think we have underestimated the frustration and the anxiety of a lot of working class people in this country, Casey. And what you're seeing is sort of this transformation.
Okay, so before I go further on that, I think this guy, I'm not familiar with any of the people on CNN at all because I never watched them, but I believe he's actually a conservative. But overall, only the media would be shocked at that the idea of running solely on abortion and turning over abortion access to the federal government would make people forget about their real struggles. And not only that, they were hoping that people wouldn't notice that there was literally nothing that Kamala Harris could do to change the fact that abortion is in the hands of the states. She was running on an issue that she knew she had no power to change at all, which honestly is extremely insulting to those who felt like she could use emotional manipulation on this issue to get them to ignore the fact that they can't afford to feed their families or keep a roof over their heads or afford to survive. And it's even insulting to those who voted based solely on this issue because they were convinced that she could make changes or have an impact on this thing that she knew she had no ability to have an impact on. So the whole thing was ultimately just really gross. And this guy's having to explain to this panel that maybe running on killing the unborn wasn't a winning strategy. So let's listen to a little bit more. I wanted to get to a reaction from one of the women on the panel. Again, I don't know the names of any of these people, and I don't mean that to be insulting. I have no idea who these people are, but this is another response from this clip.
what lessons do you think the Democratic Party needs to learn from this?
I think it's hard for us to say that right here tonight as we're looking at the initial data, because I just don't want to draw broad conclusions. I mean, look, I think clearly on the economic message, there's something about that it certainly resonated. But I think what people were missing doesn't exist anymore. So I'll be curious to see how does Trump try to deliver on that promise? Our economy is not the same as it was pre-COVID. So how does he supposedly bring back all this good times?
Again, there's nobody in more shock than people on CNN than them discussing that the economy resonated with people. I mean, it turns out when people can't afford to feed their families, that's a problem. And when you have a candidate who thinks that a legitimate answer to that question is to start talking about how she grew up in a middle-class family and then talk about the hopes and dreams and aspirations of Americans, yet doesn't offer any real answers, that's actually going to turn people away from that candidate. People can't feed their families on discussions about aspirations. They can't pay their mortgage or their rent with speeches about dreams and diversity. It just doesn't work. And I think so much of this just consistently demonstrates how stupid the left actually thinks most of America is. And in one of the other answers that the other guy that we were just listening to gave, he was kind of pointing out the difference in the demographics and the education level of the people that vote Republican versus Democrats, and saying that elite Ivy League educated Democrats tend to vote for the left, or elite educated people tend to vote for the left. And it just shows that having that piece of paper and that degree doesn't necessarily make you an intelligent person. And your worldview that you have been trained to hold on to or to view the world through doesn't necessarily mean that you have an understanding of how things work that is beneficial to you. So I guess it really just depends on what you mean by educated, because having an understanding of the economy and inflation and all of the many, many different aspects that contribute to that, to me, that is someone who is educated. You don't have to go to an Ivy League school to have an understanding of those things. And people on the left particularly were assuming that because they have more people that have those degrees, therefore they have more people that understand the economy and understand America. And that is just not the case. These people don't know anything about our country. They don't know anything about our values. They don't know anything about how the government works. And that shows when you're voting for somebody, again, that you think can have impact on an issue that they have no control over. That just shows that really fundamental lack of understanding of how things really work. So she's also trying to figure out how is Trump going to address this economy that is just in such shambles right now. It's not the same economy as it was before COVID, and there's nobody that knows that more than us. And she's ultimately admitting that things are a mess right now. And I just wish that they would acknowledge who made that mess. So it's just definitely a very, very somber reality check for the left right now. I love the comment from Sue Rosenbaum. That is the kind of disposition one has when the government is their god. Absolutely. Absolutely. The government is what these people worship. And it always amuses me when they think that because they don't go to church or because they don't believe in organized religion in some way, that they don't have a religion. But government has become their religion. Politics has become their religion. And this is the thing that they worship and that they look up to and that they look to solve all of their problems, and that they hand over all of their personal accountability and power to. So it's really astonishing to watch. So I want to get into a few more clips here. Let's see. So there was a Kamala Harris rally at the headquarters, and I believe this was at Howard University. And she was scheduled to give a speech. I think ultimately she thought she was going to win. And the tone of the event changed very, very quickly. And you can see these people. I'm just going to share a really quick clip of this if you guys haven't seen this. These people walking out of this event, and it looks like they're leaving a funeral. So let's just have a look at that really quick.
Battleground state, he's up, she's down. So you know, but if you make it that close, if you make it that close, instead of that close.
So I guess what happened was, like I said, she was scheduled to give a speech, and then somebody from her campaign, whether it was her campaign manager, I'm not entirely sure, got up and gave a speech for her and said, you know, she's not going to speak tonight. I think he said something about, you know, them waiting for more vote counts to come in and more information to come in, so that she was basically going to address them today. So we'll see what happens there. But ultimately, I think we all know she's probably having a bit of a meltdown. She's probably screaming at Doug Emhoff. And she is probably just tearing up the hotel room or her conference room or wherever she's hanging out. And she's probably too wasted to speak to anybody, or at least at that point, she was probably too wasted to speak to anybody. So that is just my personal opinion. That is not based on fact. I am not trying to spread misinformation. Don't come for me, YouTube. I'm just saying that's probably what was going on behind the scenes. But one more little clip from this rally that I thought was actually, I don't know if it was amusing or just kind of indicative of just kind of a symbol of what we really thought that this campaign stood for. At the campaign rally, in the background, they were actually playing Diddy music, of all things. I don't know if you can hear it.
Saying are accurate, and she would need to outperform, really turn things around, and what's coming in is not showing that that is likely or possible.
So I just wanted to throw that in there because I actually thought that was really amusing. But let's get into some of the other media reactions here, because we know, of course, that they are going to be unhinged. I mean, emotional reactions with no basis in fact is how they pretty much handle everything. And that is beyond clear, especially when CNN actually tried to say that it was Republicans that were calling Trump Hitler and a fascist. Yes, that is actually something that they said, and they said it with a straight face. So here's that.
What's important to remember is the people who said that he was a Hitler lover weren't Democrats, they were Republicans. People who said that he was a fascist weren't Democrats, they were Republicans who worked for him. And so it's not just these elite Democrats over here, you know, poisoning the well. You had a pretty broad consensus from Chomsky to the Cheneys, you know, that was very, very concerned and remains concerned. And
so you heard it here. Well, you may have heard it here first, but yes, the argument is that the Democrats were not the ones calling Trump these awful names, that it wasn't MSNBC like a week ago or just a few days ago playing a clip of a Ku Klux Klan rally, that claiming that because this rally was held at the Madison Square Gardens in the 1930s, that meant that it was the same thing as a Trump rally that was happening in 2024, that it wasn't them repeatedly calling Trump Hitler and his supporters Nazis over and over and over again, that it was just the Republicans who had pulled their support for Trump, and they were the ones that were actually calling him these names. So, and in that clip, I think that the guy listening to him in the red tie, I believe that might be Scott Jennings. And I could be wrong, but it looks like he's just really trying hard not to laugh. Like, are you serious right now? Is this really the thing that you want to go? Are you really still trying to double down on this deceptive, dishonest, approach to the issues that the media has become known for. Like, wouldn't it benefit you guys to at least try to be honest on some level and say perhaps it wasn't the best idea for us to double down on these talking points and to consistently try to paint the other side of the aisle as dangerous people, as a threat to democracy, as violent, as the equivalent of supporting Hitler? Like, maybe that was a bad idea, but that awareness is never, ever going to come from the left. And ultimately, it might just be the end of the media in general. But if you ask whose fault it is that this ultimately went down, of course, according to people like Maxine Waters, they're going to blame racism. That's the whole issue for her. There were others who blamed white men and their relentless misogyny. And then, of course, they can't help themselves. In this particular clip, they're actually blaming Biden for not exiting the race, exiting the White House soon enough. And had he done that, they may have actually been able to have a primary for Kamala. And because he didn't do that, it's his fault that Kamala lost. So here's just a little bit of that.
Well, and that's what makes the timing, I think, of President Biden's decision to step down after the debate something that, if she does in fact lose, will be under a microscope, because, of course, there was so much discussion, even over the summer, about potentially having an open primary and having that fight play out within the Democratic Party. So I think it's one of the big questions moving forward. Well, and that's
Again, I find the lack of awareness so astonishing, because it was them who didn't want Biden to pull out of the race. They even knew that Kamala would be a very risky candidate to get behind. But ultimately, they knew that they had to go with her, because then, of course, they would look like the racists. They would look like the people that didn't want a woman in the White House. They would look like the hypocrites. So they knew that they had to get behind her. But ultimately, it was them. They spent years telling us that Biden was fine, that he was coherent, that there was nothing wrong with his cognitive abilities, that he was sharp as a tack, that he was at the top of his game. They were the ones pushing this narrative. So why would he have pulled out of the White House sooner, or pulled out of this race sooner, if he was as sharp and quick and on top of his game as they were all saying that he was? So how does that make any sense? Of course, it doesn't make sense. We know it doesn't make sense. This is coming from the media. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we know that they did this to themselves. They put someone out there that they didn't like, their own base didn't like, as much as they like to say that, the Republicans didn't support Kamala, or the country in general didn't support Kamala Harris because of misogyny. Guys, in 2020, you didn't even vote for her. You had plenty of women candidates, of female candidates on that stage. It could have been Tulsi Gabbard. It could have been Amy Klobuchar. It could have been, I believe there was Marianne Williamson. There were several other women on the stage that they could have gotten behind, and they didn't do that. So not only that, they put someone out there that didn't even get a single vote, that nobody wanted. And then Biden gave her responsibilities that she failed to deliver on, that she failed to follow through on. And then she's part of this administration that has caused the things that people are struggling with. And then when they couldn't hide the fact that Biden was barely coherent, they put Kamala out there with this superficial campaign, like calling her brat, then trying to make people think they owed her this vote because she's a woman, because she's not white, and because somehow she's oppressed. And then they ran a campaign solely focused on killing unborn babies. And it's this issue that they tried to rope both men and women in on as their top priority. So they're the ones that set up this domino effect of failure. And now they're sitting here completely shocked that this ridiculous campaign, this completely unserious candidate, didn't win, didn't even come close to winning. I have to say, I think that Donald Trump probably would have preferred to retire. I mean, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have. I think in a lot of ways, Donald Trump felt like I don't want to say owed, but that maybe he felt owed this second term, because we know that he truly feels like he won in 2020. And I think that there's a lot of a lot of room to question a lot of the things that happened in the 2020 election. I'm not going to say which side of the coin I fall on that, but ultimately I think that he felt like he was cheated out of a second term, and I think a lot of Trump supporters feel that way. And at this point, I don't know if that's either here nor there. So I don't know if he would have retired, but ultimately it would have been nice to know that we could let this man right off into the sunset if he wanted to, and that we could, bring somebody else out perhaps. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of us still felt like Trump was perhaps the only one that could really fight this fight in the way that it needs to be handled. So they're the ones that ultimately caused this situation and brought this on themselves and just created this firestorm and this dumpster fire. And we were like, we don't have a lot of options for how it can ultimately be fixed. So they're never going to admit that they brought this on themselves. They're never going to admit that they were the ones that failed their own base. But if you guys want to see some really fun reactions, of course, the unhinged reactions on TikTok have been abundant this morning. So I did see a few from men, but of course it's the white liberal women that always come through for us in this way. So this one is particularly unhinged. So let's just have a listen to some little tidbits of enlightenment that she wants to share with us this morning.
Will make it my life's mission, my dying wish, that none of you weirdos can hide in the future. You can't lie to your kids. You can't lie to your grandkids about, oh, it was so confusing. It was hard to see the truth. He was so convincing. I will not let you get away with that. Like, that was not normal. This is not normal. I will make it clear to everyone. Like, I will make sure no one is confused about how things were right now in this very vital, crucial time in American history, that it was not confusing. It was not.
She sounds stable. Maybe she needs to take a little bit of a step back, take a breather this morning. I'm not really sure how she intends to spread her wealth of knowledge and very clear understanding of how things are right now. I just think maybe she needs a vacation. Maybe, I don't know. She's not okay. There's another one here. Of course, we have to get somebody crying. I have two clips, and I'm going to save the best for last, but this one is of this woman crying. I shouldn't. Why am I laughing at somebody crying? It's not okay. But it's just been, all over social media this morning. So this is another one.
Anyone else having a meltdown? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to wait. I'm so stressed. How you can't look out into the world, into the people of this country, and see what's happening. And how hard we're all fighting for rights not to be taken away from people. I go from hysterically crying 1 minute over the pain of this situation, and then hysterically crying the next minute, watching so many people come together and women from around the world supporting us and cheering us on. I am 48 years old, and I have never experienced anything like this and never thought I would in this country. It's like,
again, I think so many of these people would benefit from taking a break from social media, taking a break from TikTok, taking a break from the mainstream media, just taking a step back. I can say, had things gone the other way in this election, had Kamala Harris won, I would have definitely woken up with a massive pit in my stomach. I mean, there were so many things to be concerned about. And if she wants to talk about rights being taken away, we're talking about censorship. We're talking about gun rights. We're talking about Title IX and the fact that, they rewrote Title IX where the word woman doesn't have any legal definition, and all of the spaces that are dedicated to women can now be taken over by men. She doesn't really seem to be concerned about that. But there are so many different things that we were really, really concerned about. Not having all of these illegal immigrants deported, not addressing these gangs that are taking over so many cities, and the fentanyl crisis, and so many different issues. But But ultimately, a lot of us still rely heavily on our faith. Government is not our God. Trump is not our Messiah. We don't worship him. And at the end of the day, we know that God is aware of our challenges and of our struggles, and that even as bad as things get, he's who we turn to, and we still have that hope, and we still have our faith, and we still have a reason to feel happy. And you can see when you become obsessed with these things, when it takes over your entire soul, that it really is the difference between being able to have any kind of perspective and a level head versus just feeling like it is truly the end of the world. And I know that I actually did see several TikToks the other day of people, really having an emotional moment, wondering how things were going to turn out, and really feeling the stress of Kamala Harris potentially being elected. But I still stand behind the fact that we have so much more faith and so much more joy on our side of the aisle. And we really do have a spirit of being able to overcome, where this kind of thing I don't think would have been common on our side. And maybe I'm just living in a bubble, but these reactions are just out of control. But guys, I have saved the best for last, the best reaction for last. Like, oh, are you ready? Are you ready? This lady. All right, buckle up. I don't remember if there's profanities in this, and she is screaming at the top of her lungs. So if you have kids nearby, maybe plug their ears for a second. Or if you're listening to this at work, maybe turn down the volume.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Why? Do you really hate me that bad? I'm sorry. No.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Should I be laughing? And I have to say, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get it together, because that clearly that woman is very, very troubled this morning, and she clearly needs a friend. But as much as these clips are worth mocking, I think what we need to acknowledge is how effective the media has been on literally melting these people's brains and stealing their hope and their ability to think for themselves, and ultimately stealing their autonomy, because the propaganda of the media has made it so that so many people, both men and women on the left, are just not making informed decisions. They think they're making informed decisions because they think that the information that they're being given is the whole picture. But when as we've seen, so many people step outside of that bubble and realize how much has been held from them and how much they have not gotten from the media, you can see from the outside looking in that these people are not making decisions based on a real, honest picture of the situation. They're making judgments based through a very, very specific and curated funnel of information. And this just clearly demonstrates why free speech is so important, why it's so important to have access to data and information from so many areas. And not only that regardless of what the outcome of an election is, that you don't feel like you've lost all power in your life or your ability to control your own circumstances. And clearly, so many of these people truly feel like that has happened. I think they live in a very, very dark cave when it comes to their views of the world. And again, as easy as it is to mock, and I'm not going to stop mocking them, it's also very, very, very sad to see. Ashley says this was not expected. I completely agree. Brian thinks that this is funny. Gilbert says Trump, yes, 2024, we won. Absolutely. I mean, as I said before, it should not have been a close race. And I think the fact it wasn't unexpected in the sense that we don't think that this is what should have happened, because we all know that this is the right outcome. It was unexpected in the sense that we didn't know what we were going to be dealing with throughout the day, throughout the night. We were, as I said before, we were afraid to go to sleep because that ended very badly last time that we had this situation going on. It was not good. So I think it was unexpected in the sense that we just thought the shoe was going to drop and the rug was going to be pulled out from under us in some way. And ultimately, I still think moving forward between now and January 20th, we still need to hold our breath a little bit and just continue to pray. But it also says that, we have a level of optimism that we probably haven't felt in a really long time. But just to kind of move on from these crazy reactions, I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. What do we think that this says about Hollywood, what this says about the media, and what this says about so many of our systems in America? Because I've said before, I feel like Hollywood used to have so much more influence over our lives. And I know that there were, more people than I probably realized that were really paying attention to Hollywood for years and years and years, and how corrupt and how depraved that they really were. But I think for a lot of us, myself included, I still think Hollywood had maybe a level of credibility and influence, and at least they were somewhat worth listening to, at least from human to human. But at this point, whatever veneer may have been there in the past, it is completely gone. They no longer have any power in society at all. People don't want to hear from them. We don't want to hear their opinions on anything. We can see right through their act. And ultimately, we're just not interested in taking advice or direction or any cues from these people, from an industry that rivals the government when it comes to corruption and depravity. And I guess my question is, going forward, can Hollywood ever recover from this? Because in my opinion, if they weren't already spiraling downward, the antics over the last few months have definitely put a nail in that coffin. And I think what it comes down to is no one was surprised that people in Hollywood were voting Democrat. We knew that we've always known that this is a very, very liberal industry. Most of them live in California. They live in these very wealthy areas and ultimately don't have to pay attention to what is going on in the real world. So that's not really where this is coming from. I think what started to get people's attention and started to turn people off from this industry is this level of moral superiority that they just started to feel like they had over us. It was this idea that people who live in multi-million-dollar homes, who spend more on a pair of shoes than most of us pay for a mortgage, think they have any room to get on stage and tell us what should matter to us, to try to tell us who would make a good and moral leader, to tell us who has the answers to our problems, when they have so little understanding of what our problems actually are. And not only that, consistently demonstrating this lack of desire to even try to understand what matters to us, what we're struggling with, what we're dealing with, whether it comes to our kids in the public education system, whether it comes to being able to actually be able to afford a home, to put food on the table, to being able to just walk down the street and feel safe. All of these things, it's just there was no desire to even understand. And they participated in this manipulation campaign with the left and just continued to double down on this idea that the things that actually matter to us shouldn't matter to us. And I think at the end of the day, and then of course, they participated in this campaign to vilify half of their potential viewers and to join in this narrative that half the country is evil and not even worth having conversations with or listening to. And there were just so many things that were just too far for too many people, for most of us. And I don't know that they're ever going to be able to turn that around and to regain our trust and to regain our support. And it, I don't know if that is really important, but I really appreciated this tweet from Rob Smith that says, America rejected Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Megan Thee Stallion, John Legend, Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Usher, Taylor Swift, George Clooney, Ariana Grande, Jamie Lee Curtis, and will.i.am, and chose freedom. So we basically just told them to take their moral superiority and shove it. And ultimately, in my opinion, the only way that they're ever really going to gain favor, maybe, even though I think that that's a long shot, is to, one, stop trying to tell us what to do and stop trying to give us advice on how we should live our lives. Two, clean up the rampant exploitation and depravity in Hollywood, and then maybe we can have a conversation on a relatable level about morality and what's good and right in this world. And third, stick to acting, stick to entertaining, stay in your lane. And then at that point, maybe people will come around again. But honestly, I doubt it. As far as the media, what I think is really interesting about this, I think ultimately this is the death of the media. I mean, in 2020, and you guys again can let me know if you agree, disagree, but I feel like they had far more influence than they did this year. People, for some reason, even though the 4 years of covering Trump really should have woken people up, but I just don't think people were ready for it. They really thought that they might be sincere in trying to, the people thought that the media might be sincere in trying to drive them toward a candidate that might heal this country and bring unity. Now, a lot of us didn't buy the crap they were selling then and definitely didn't buy it now, but there were a lot of people that were under that impression, and that the media really wanted what was best for us, and that they really wanted to fix things, even though we knew, again, a lot of us knew that they were causing this division that they claimed to want to have an interest in healing. But the fact that we got their candidate and things went downhill so fast, and the fact that their entire narrative was about belittling and demeaning half the country, people just quickly realized that the media had willingly led them to vote for somebody who promised to heal the country, yet delivered the most catastrophic policies that most of us have ever seen in our lifetime. And as I've said many times, it's not conservatives that drove people away from the left and drove people away from the media and drove people away from the Democrat Party. It was the left who drove people away from the left. Ultimately, people don't want to be divided. We don't want to be fighting with our neighbors. And they've realized that things got far worse under the guy that the media drove them toward, and suddenly we were left with this candidate who caused so many catastrophic outcomes for good people, yet got on stage and they were all laughing and smiling about it, which to me is psychopathic and sociopathic behavior. So at this point, they know that they aren't going to be able to spend the next 4 years running this anti-Trump narrative, because no one is going to believe them, because we know how biased they are. And more people are awake to that fact than ever before. So I just don't know what direction they go in. Not to say that they're not going to try, because clearly, I mean, I was listening to a clip from Jen Psaki from last night, still running on this idea that Trump is a dictator, that, you know, women are going to lose their rights and whatever else they've been peddling over the last several years and last several months. But at this point, I mean, people don't trust them and don't believe them on a much wider scale at this point, because the things that they have said have been the opposite of our actual lived experiences. So I just if they ever had a small audience before and, you know, a very diminished viewership before, I think that it's going to be at even more dire levels now, because people realize just how corrupt, just how biased they are, and how much of a lack of interest and how much of a lack of care they actually have for their viewers, and that everything they say is really in their interest and in the interest of the elites in their party and not actually for us. And as I said, more people are waking up to that fact than ever before. So who is going to listen to them at this point? Let's see. Press Secretary Clown Lady says they will have to remake the Dem Party. The popular vote proves it. The woke agenda was beaten by the popular vote. Wokeism is over. And I hope that that's true. I mean, and I think that one of the nails in the coffin for the Kamala Harris campaign was that clip of her laughing about how people need to be woke, how people need to embrace wokeness on some level, whether it be, you know, just a little bit or to become more, or whatever it was, you know, that. and woke has become this word, as much as the Democrats have tried to say that it's, you know, this slur, and that conservatives don't actually know what it means, or that people in general don't actually know what it means. I think people very clearly understand what woke means. It's just this collection of ideologies that is trying to destroy the thing that has made so many people successful, that has worked for so many people across the globe, across so many different demographics and so many different levels of income. You know, it's just something that works and has uplifted so many people out of challenging circumstances. And woke is just this basket of ideas that is trying to destroy what is good and right about America. And the idea of expanding woke ideology or encouraging people to be more woke, people were like, wait a second, like, that's the last thing we want. We don't actually want that for this country. I mean, it's one thing to have a Democrat president, but to ultimately tell people that they need to embrace this entire system of thinking that is in direct contradiction to everything that America stands for. People were like, no, that's not what we want. I mean, we can talk about expanding social programs or, you know, using the government more to try to uplift people, even though that's just a farce in and of itself. But when it comes to completely embracing an anti-American ideology in general across the board, that's not going to resonate with people, especially as we've seen how destructive all of these things have been to our institutions, to our systems, to our families, to our kids. You know, it's just mind-boggling that that she actually thought saying that was a good idea. Chris Chilcote says, here in Columbus, Ohio, and the Columbus Dispatch published an accidentally really funny article about how democracy died last night and everything is ruined forever. That's not dramatic at all. So what do you guys think? I mean, we're going to get close to ending this live stream soon. And just as a little plug, if you guys do want to support the channel, I have a little support link called Buy Me a Coffee. Everything goes to help my channel and help my little studio area, and just help me to be able to give more content and provide better content going forward as I try to consistently improve my channel. But what do you guys think we expect going forward? I know that Trump is going to have a lot on his plate in the first 100 days. He doesn't have 4 years to fix things. He needs to turn things around very, very quickly. As I know, we all hope the illegal immigrants are all put on one gigantic bus and sent back to their countries, especially the gangs and the criminals that are just making life miserable for so many people. I hope every single one of them is shaking in their boots right now, because all of them need to go. And this is clearly not about immigrants that are here illegally. My mom is from Canada and she lives in Utah right now. So if I honestly thought I was electing somebody that was going to send her back, that might have been a question for me. But clearly I know that her status in this country is not under threat. And we all know that the whole narrative around immigration is about getting rid of these people that are actually causing very real and severe harm, particularly to women and children, if we want to talk about women's rights. I think people should absolutely feel hopeful about the future, but as we know, there is a very massive mess to clean up, and it is going to take time. But I also think that because especially more businesses and, you know, more areas of the economy are going to feel a little bit more secure about the future, that is obviously going to lead to more opportunity and more growth. People aren't going to be as hesitant to start investing and to start building and to start doing these things that actually contribute to the economy. Whereas before, when things are so unstable, that really puts a halt on hiring. It puts a halt on growth. It puts a halt on wages. People don't want to invest if they feel like everything is going to fall apart. So I think we're going to start to see that hopefully improve fairly quickly. I think I could speak for most of us when I say I cannot wait for this war in Ukraine to end and for us to stop sending money to these people. I hope that Trump drops a giant nuke on Hamas. I don't know how that's all going to play out. I hope China is ready to be penalized again for taking advantage of the American economy. I also hope that Trump pardons every single one of these January 6ers, because there are still people serving prison time for that event that happened almost 4 years ago and being treated extremely inhumanely. And I hope cases like the one that I talked about a couple of weeks ago with Bevelyn Beatty Williams, who had to turn herself out into federal prison for her event in front of an abortion facility. I hope that her case is pardoned. And I know that there are others that are facing consequences similar to hers. But I know that there are so many things that people are feeling positive about today, far more positive than they were yesterday, far more positive than they were last week. And I hope that people can feel this weight lifted off their shoulders, that there is something at least to look forward to, as bumpy as that road might be. Let's see. I'll be really curious. Chris Chilcote says, I'll be really curious how long it'll take for the Dems to realize that the sky isn't falling. Thanks for getting your voice out there, Samantha. You are very, very welcome. Tasha Cooper says, so far people are being okay. I've only seen 2 friends go. I hope I wanted cheap. 2 friends go. I wanted cheap food more than my daughter having rights. Well, I think you meant abortion rights. But yeah, like I need to be able to actually feed my daughter before I can think about all these other things. So yeah. And then press secretary, clown lady, I can't believe they put men in women's spaces and expected it to go over. Again, I think they overestimated pandering to a very small percentage of the country. And not only that, like the most unhinged, detached from reality percentage of the population. You know, they weren't even trying to pander to people that actually, you know, care about the country and love this country and have a stable perspective. They were literally pandering to the most psychologically disturbed people in America, which I think again says everything about who these people are. A couple more comments. This is Brandon says they don't love the American people and the American citizens. They don't belong in office at all. They are not the people for the job. You know, I think it's kind of a bare minimum standard that if you want to lead a particular country, you actually need to love that country and you need to actually love the people who are in that country. I don't think that that's too much to ask. So I completely agree with you guys. So I appreciate you guys being here. I do want to play. This is a clip from Scott Jennings. And if you guys haven't seen this, this is actually really, really good, where Scott Jennings is just kind of explaining to CNN, like, hey, maybe take some lessons from this, maybe try to relate to real people next time. So this is about 2 minutes long, but it's absolutely worth listening to. So I'm going to play that really quick.
Mandate has won the national popular vote for the first time since, for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids. And they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line. And we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough. the mandate. People who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a over this.
Sorry, I wanted to get to just a screenshot of these guys. It looks like Scott Jennings is sitting there and scolding a room full of children, saying, hey, maybe name calling wasn't the best approach. Maybe that's not how we handle our feelings when we're frustrated with something. Maybe that's not how we get our way. Maybe being mean to people and talking down to them and being condescending and rude and being bullies is not the best way to communicate. And maybe next time we can use better words and control our emotions a little bit better. That's just kind of what it sounds like to me. And they all just look like so miserable. You know, and do I think that they're actually going to take any of this advice and that they're actually listening? Of course not. I think it's just in one ear and out the other. But I do want to play just a brief clip of just part of Trump's speech, because I think that, you know, that is the most important thing that we can end on, is just this, just highlighting this man that has literally dodged a bullet for us, that is almost 80 years old and still has the energy to speak to the American people on almost no sleep. And you know, I didn't even have that same energy, and all I did was sit on my couch last night. So respect. But let's listen to just a minute of this.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends on this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance, because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
I love it. I love it. And I was actually, I mean, we're almost done. I just have a quick question. At the Trump rallies, have you ever heard people yell Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump? Because to me, it's always just USA, USA, USA. Like, whereas at the Kamala rallies, they would get up there and chant Kamala, Kamala. Like, I don't know if they ever chanted USA, which I'm just noticing such a stark contrast in how these campaigns were run, and just they showed us what their priorities were, and people saw what their priorities were. So anyway, I do appreciate you guys being here for this live stream. Thank you for being patient with me being a little bit late this morning. I was feeling a little bit tired, I'm not going to lie, but I am so grateful that things turned out the way that they did. I have said a couple of prayers this morning already, just thanking God for this outcome, even though I know the path going forward is not necessarily going to be smooth or quick, and we're not necessarily going to see immediate results. But I feel reassured in the fact that God did not allow this country to be represented by the issue of abortion, that he did not allow this country to fall so drastically. And we know that there are so many consistently evil forces that we are contending with right now. But I'm so grateful to everybody that woke up and really saw this for what it was, and that were humble enough to come forward and say, perhaps I was wrong, or to come out from behind, you know, that fear of being labeled a racist, or insert whatever name, transphobe, homophobe, whatever, and to realize that there was a lot at stake here, and to put aside their fear and to speak up in favor of this country, because it really isn't about just Trump. We're getting RFK Jr., we're getting Tulsi Gabbard, we're getting Elon Musk, we're getting this dream team of people that really truly love this country and love us as people and really want to see us succeed and to address the things that have been so hurtful and so harmful to us as people, to our families, to our kids. And I'm excited to see what comes from that. So I appreciate you guys being here. Please be sure. Sorry, I'm going to read one more comment. Can I say, I realized last night I have been in a state of depression for the last 4 years. I actually felt God take it away. Oh, Anna, you're gonna make me cry. And if you guys don't know me, I am not an emotional person. I don't cry. Just ask my husband. I think he's watching right now. I'm not an emotional person, but when it comes to how much I love this country and how much I can't even listen to the American anthem without like tears streaming down my face. That is how much I love this country, and I'm so grateful that things turned out the way that they did. Anyway, get back in there. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will be back here next week at the same time. Please, go through my channel and hit the thumbs up on some of those videos, get them out there in the algorithm. I appreciate you guys so much, and God bless America.